Podcast, WATP.
There's a show called The Real Brady Bros, in which Barry Williams and Christopher Knight, Greg and Peter from the Brady Bunch, talk about the Brady Bunch. These guys are 66 and 69 years old, and they're still doing a show about the Brady Bunch. How sad is that? Their entire lives, they've tried to do other things a little bit. One of the things that I've been picking up on is that Barry Williams really fancies himself a singer.
Oh, yeah.
He thought that was going to catch on, like that was his thing.
Right.
He's kind of the David Hasselhoff of the Brady Bunch, except for David Hasselhoff actually has a fan base somewhere.
He's like, yeah, I'll talk about the Brady Bunch until this catches fire.
Right.
Whoops.
Well, wasn't he doing those shows in Branson, Missouri?
Where, yeah, right.
Like those dinner theater shows
where
or something?
everything's familiar.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he has to come out as Johnny Bravo and sing the same songs that I saw this on a rerun.
Yeah, he really thought he'd be David Cassidy to the Partridges, and it just was not that in any way. There was Tiger Beat didn't give a fuck about that guy.
No, they did not.
It's like, Chachi again? Fuck.
So the reason why someone suggested this is because they have 3 different styles of shows. They do the thing where they review a past episode of the Brady Bunch. They do a show that's just Q&A, where losers ask questions about how they were mic'd on set. I swear to God, that was an actual question that came in. It's crazy. Like, who the fuck? Why would you care? Does it sound good to you? Great. That's enough. Whatever. So late 60s, early 70s. What does it matter? And then there's a third style of show, and this is what caught my eye, because they have guests on from time to time. And in this show, they're introducing the show, and this guest can't contain himself, has to start yelling.
This time we're going to include another very famous television show and a very famous guest and a very good friend of both of ours. I'm Barry Williams.
I'm Christopher Knight.
And we are...
I'm Danny Bonaduce.
Danny.
That's who we have today.
Bonaduce.
Yeah, and you're lucky to have me. Damn it.
Now, what's your familiarity with Danny Bonaduce, Pat?
Well, I mean, I know him from Partridge Family and also from getting punched a bunch in life.
Yep.
And then just sucking.
So my experience with him post Partridge Family is he was teamed up with Adam Carolla for a while. And I listened to Adam Carolla for years, and all he would do was tell stories about what a pain in the ass Danny is and what a douche he is. And he comes across like that, too. You could tell just from that clip.
Yep.
You know, they're like ready to go, and we're the Real Brady Bros, whatever they're going to do with their stupid intro. He's just like, and I'm Danny Bonaduce.
Yeah,
like, all right, buddy.
That's their Joey C.
we're going to get to you. Don't worry. Relax. We know you're here.
He was like one of the first celebrity fight guys.
Yes, they talk about that
yeah.
because he actually boxed Barry Williams.
Oh.
And that's actually a funny story that they get into because they talk about, so Danny Bonaduce's like obsessed with money because he's been broke a lot in his life. And so they talk about how Danny brings up how much money he made from celebrity boxing.
It turned into so much money. It was, you got, now I'm sure we all got the same thing. Did you get 25 G's?
Right. Actually, more. 50.
Son of a bitch, that can't be true.
Who did you have?
If Barry Williams made more money than me, what am I going to say?
They probably paid you the same. It's just your people took half of it.
Well, he goes, I'm sure we all got paid the same thing, right? 25? He's like, no, I wouldn't have done that for 25. What are you, nuts?
You should just ended that sentence with, I'm sure we all got the same.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Dummy.
Yeah, I could have just left it at that. It was right after that, though, Danny has to say, but then I put a casino name on my back and I got another 15,000. It's like Stuttering John all over again.
God,
it's so fucking crazy. It's people who obsess about sponsorship deals and how much money they made from them.
Everything's a W.
Yes, correct. All right, so Danny's on the show and he's like, you know what would be great is if I did a similar show with people from the Partridge Family and we got together and did a podcast. Only one problem.
That when I heard of the success of the Brady Bros, I thought I should do the Partridge people. And then I realized, oh, yeah, some of the best ones are dead. So I can't do that. David's gone. Ruben's gone. So I don't have it. So thank you for having me today. It's very exciting.
Welcome to our family. Because everybody thought we lived on the same block anyway.
Why was that funny? He's naming off people who are dead from that show. They're like, yeah, he sure is.
Well, he should have said Suzanne Day's probably got a restraining order against me, so she won't be on. It's like,
Yeah. The dead people are the only ones who would possibly talk to him at this point.
right.
All right. So Danny then interrupts. He's interrupting all the time. And he interrupts because he's obviously jealous of Barry Williams' career, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, there you go. By the way, can I just say, because I don't know what you guys want to talk about or what you want to do, and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but Barry, my friend, and we've been together a while, I got to tell you, I saw you on Dancing with the Stars, and I was a little bit jealous, to be honest. But then when you ripped your shirt off, I went, yeah, Barry, go. It was so good. And then you were the talk of the town and every other town. It was just great, man. I was very proud of you.
Thank you. Thanks.
He's our Brady Hoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he thinks he is, for sure. How bad is Dancing with the Stars? They had Greg Brady on. That's one of the celebrities. I don't really watch that show too often, but I don't think it's doing well.
And I wonder if he was like top of list. I'm hoping he was like, we couldn't get anyone else. Barry's available.
Right. Yeah.
Not like get fucking Barry.
Yeah, that phone call doesn't start with this. Hey, are you busy next month? Hey, no, he's available.
What do we have to do to get Greg Brady on this dance floor?
What's it going to take? So it turns out that Danny Bonaduce is very bitter. He's a very bitter guy. He had a lot of bad experiences. You know, he was a child star, and then he got wrapped up in drugs and stuff like that. One of those stories. And he's never really let that go. He's kind of like pissed at the other people from the Partridge Family.
I just think people did not get along with that guy, that he was a little hard guy to get along with. And so they dumped him, this is allegedly, and then we got Brian Forster, who was kind of an even trade, really. He was nicer, but he wasn't the sharpest guy, like ad libs and stuff. He wasn't that kind of guy.
So he was just bashing his coworkers from the 70s, the early 70s. Like that, well, maybe just let it go.
He really is like Stuttering John, where he just blames everyone around him for everything bad, and everyone else was terrible, and then they should have recognized him more.
Yes, correct.
And his voice has changed a little bit, like Stuttering John.
Oh, you think?
This sounds like Billy West doing Danny Bonaduce.
You're right. It does sound like a Danny Bonaduce impression at this point. But
Then they were like Barry Forrester.
I'm glad that they acknowledge the absurdity of doing a show about a show that ended over 50 years ago. Ended, not started, ended over 50 years ago.
Now, we are talking about shows that were done a half a century ago, more than 50 years ago, and we're still talking about it.
Hello, exactly.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. That's why we're pointing and laughing at
And it
you.
wasn't a good show.
And also, did you hear Danny Bonaduce when he was talking about maybe doing this with the Partridge Family? He was like, with all the success you guys are having. Although, what now?
Yeah, what?
What are you talking about?
Based on...
Yeah. I mean, I review podcasts for a living. I didn't know this existed.
I don't know why it does. Like this, like we named at the beginning, nostalgia is for the 90s. That's who we care about. 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
People that are like, my mom's 73. She watched the Bradys. She doesn't be reminded that the people that were young like her are old pieces of shit. They're not going to want to listen to that. And unless they say Barry was fucking his mom, no one cares about the stories.
What,
Right.
Was he?
You know what? And that's,
Yeah, he was
that's a
fucking
really,
terrible. That's been out there. But
that's a really good point, though, because they do talk about they all got along and they all were dating each other. The problem is there's like very little conflict on the set. And so all their stories about these episodes, just like, oh yeah, I remember that. It was fun.
Oh, so it's as boring as the show.
Yes.
Everyone gets
Yes.
along. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
like,
So-
there's a show called like for Ned's Declassified. The first show they ever did, they're all like, we all fucked each other. Like, what? We were kids and we fucked. And you're like, I'll listen every week now to hear what the hell's going on.
Let's go. But not this show. It's like the most scandalous thing was that the dad was a gay man.
Yeah.
And
And AIDS.
yeah, well,
AIDS
right.
gay.
Yeah, AIDS
Like
gay.
full-blown
That's pretty gay.
AIDS.
That is pretty gay.
Mr. Brady had AIDS. Let's just make that clear for
If
everyone.
you're going to be gay in the 80s and 90s, you better have AIDS or else I'm not
you
buying
better
it.
have the most AIDS.
Full blown.
So much AIDS.
I'm coming out of the AIDS closet today.
Yes.
My homosexuality. Okay, so Danny is telling a story about in 1988, David Cassidy grabbed him and said, listen, man, you're spiraling. You've got nothing going on. Come with me. I'm going to do a tour. You come with me on this tour, a little nostalgia thing that he was doing. But there's no drinking, there's no drugs, there's no girls. We're just going to go town to town and do these shows. And I probably have some of that in this clip, but I'm telling you this because Danny's explaining all of this, and he's just steamrolling a conversation because Greg is trying to get some questions in. And I keep calling him Greg. I'm sorry. He's correcting me.
He is Greg.
It's fine. He's trying to get, Peter's trying to get questions in, and no one can stop this guy from talking.
And damn if he wasn't right.
What was
it was
the tour?
1988,
What did you do?
and I ended up being the host of the morning show in Philadelphia on Eagle 106, if I'm not mistaken. And I've been in radio ever since. It was 1988. And then 1990.
I didn't edit that at all. That was them going, hey, but did you? No, all right, now keep going. But what's crazy is that you just heard the clip I played. This is just a couple seconds later. Christopher was not paying attention at all.
That's fantastic. And that was late 70s, right? Wouldn't it have been?
No. Late 70s, I was still a child. It was early 90s.
90s.
Early 90s? Is that when you started your radio career, right? Okay. I thought it was in the late 70s.
I remember you had a couple of jokes, one of which involved in great detail a toilet.
I love that Barry jumped in to save his friend right there. He's like, oh, really? I thought you were in the radio. It's like, no, he just said he started in the early 90s. Fucking pay attention and keep up. I love it when you ask your guests about their life and then you have to argue with them over it. Like, are you sure? Yeah.
It was my life.
Yeah, that's the
I
story
like
I'm
that
telling
Peter
you.
had hope that Danny rolled from one career to the next and didn't have a huge lull of shit. He's like, no,
Right.
you went right into it, right? He's like, oh, no, I was homeless for a while. Then got the
Oh, yeah, no. Things got real dark, but let's talk about my radio career for a minute. Oh, and then Danny Bonaduce, because he has been, he just recently retired, but he's been doing morning radio for decades. And he's one of these guys that doesn't realize that podcasts are different. This is not a live stream show. This is a podcast.
By the way, if you're just tuning in, I'm Danny Bonaduce, special guest, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I don't know what toilet joke you're going for, because I got to be honest with you, I've told more than one.
If you're just joining us, I'm Danny. Like, he's almost like showing those guys how to host a show. Let me just school you guys real quick on how this works. Like, no, dummy, we introduced you at the beginning of the show. No one starts at the 30-second mark of a podcast. They got it. They know what's going on. All right, so that's when they have a guest on their show. The other format, as we talked about, is they go back and rewatch one of the old Brady Bunch episodes, and then they discuss it. And the discussion is fascinating. So this was the most recent episode they just dropped, talking about the first episode of season 5, Adios, Johnny Bravo. We all remember it very well. And let's get the deets.
First aired September 14th, 1973. Of course, created by Sherwood Schwartz, executive producer. Produced by Howard Leeds and Lloyd Schwartz. Written by Joanna Lee and directed by Jerry London.
That's fascinating. Please go on.
Why do people feel compelled to do this? No one knows who those people are.
What is this,
Well,
chewed
I know
gum?
the name because at the beginning it would say Sherwood Schwartz, but I didn't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah.
It just said that.
Doesn't mean
That's
anything
like Dick
to me.
Wolf. It's the same shit.
Right. Doesn't mean anything to me at all, especially when they're talking about who was the director on this episode. It's like, it really doesn't matter. No. I don't know anyone who goes, well, you got to watch the Brady Bunches that were directed by Schwartz, because those are the ones that are nuts.
When that guy Phil did set design, the one who used turf for grass, that guy was great.
that guy.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, he's ahead of his time, obviously.
Fuck grass.
All right, so then this is more evidence that Barry loves to sing, because this is his Johnny Bravo episode where he was going to become this big rock star and he got to do all these solo performances.
Jumpsuit with the open shit.
Oh yeah. He was a sex star at this point.
Yeah, like Evil Knievel, but gayer.
Got to be in love. Got to be in love to love a love song.
There you go. See?
Now, some of you might remember that. Got to be in love to love a love song. Yeah.
Fucking thing sucks.
Please, if you could just refrain from doing that. And Pat mentioned this. So Pat, this has been on his radar for a while. He mentioned, I think before we started the show, that they don't pull any clips from the episode. They just talk about it. And they explain scene by scene what happens. Which
One of my favorite episodes is the one with Cindy Brady, where they just walk her through it. But I don't think they realized she had trauma from it. I don't know if you know those clips, but she had trauma because she was being bullied and abused for her character, Cindy, when she would go to real school. So they're like, hey, remember the lisp episode? She goes, yeah, it ruined my life. It like every day people would lisp at me and shit. And they're like, well, anyway. And then Peter's like, well, I wasn't even in that episode. It's like, I was, and it ruined everything. It's like, so.
She's been on a bunch of these episodes. I was going through the whole rundown of all the guests. She's the most recurring guest, and they talk about her. And they go, yeah, she's great. She speaks her mind. Yeah, she doesn't mind putting her opinion out there.
Well, they also say they call her the Brady memory. Well, she's the only one young enough to remember shit. So like she's the only one that remembers all the stuff. Greg and Peter don't remember much, and she just says it. Okay, I think that happened.
Yeah, she probably learned about sex on the set there.
Well, right. Hopefully not
from her dad with AIDS. That would be the worst. you get molested and get AIDS. That's a double whammy.
That's a double whammy right there.
Worst pedophile ever.
Okay, so Barry's singing the thing, and he goes on to talk about how he thought he was going to have solo success. He was actually recording an album at the same time. Because he thought that he was going to become a star, like David Cassidy or something like that, or the Monkees, which they talk about a little bit. And it turns out that the other people he was working with had different ideas.
Not a lot of people know this. Before the Brady Bunch kids recorded any albums, Barry Williams recorded or started on a solo album. And I had about 7 or 8 tracks recorded when there was a big change of direction brought by the studio, really, or network. And they decided that, well, kind of like this episode, that we would like to make it the Brady Bunch kids instead of Barry Williams.
Jesus, Nelson's really
he's on fire
today. Wow. And what's funny about this dynamic is that as Barry's talking about all of his dreams and hopes getting crushed, Chris is sitting there, right? Am I getting their names right? Christopher Knight is sitting there. He's going,
Peter.
Yeah, Peter. Thank you. I don't know which one to go with. Peter's sitting there and going, oh, really? I didn't even know that. Yeah, we had a best of album we put out. Oh, I didn't know we had a best of album. I had no idea. And this guy had to go in the studio and record all these songs just like everyone else. And meanwhile, Greg's like, I'm the star. And they're like bringing in fucking Cindy to sing. What's this all about? So
of course he doesn't know. He's not getting mad checks still from Come On, Get Happy. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not coming in.
And he didn't care. He actually talks about how they approached him after the Brady Bunch was over and did want to turn him into this singing sensation because, as everyone in the Discord is reminding me, Christopher Knight married a smoke show.
Yeah.
Very hot model. And
they had that reality show on VH1 for a little bit.
Yes. And so apparently he has some type of appeal that it's beyond me. I don't see it, but, whatever. It's not my type. So they wanted to turn him into something, and he mentioned that, yeah, but I'm not actually talented. I can't sing. So, it's this thing that you couldn't really manufacture with me. So then they start talking about the Monkees and how the Monkees were a manufactured band, but, they were a knockoff on the Beatles, but not that different.
But musically, each of them could have recorded their own tracks, and the studio would not let them. They brought in studio musicians, often done, even with the Beatles, by the way. They had studio musicians come in and play it for the tracks because they're so exacting, and time is money.
Whoa. Hold on a second. He's claiming the Beatles didn't play on their own albums. Do you know how much footage there is of the Beatles recording their own music? They brought in studio musicians, to play the string parts and the horn section, Billy Preston, but the Beatles played on their own albums. It's very well documented. It's very well known.
Peter Jackson put out 4 million hours of footage at one time.
Yeah, I've seen quite a lot of evidence.
It's too much footage.
Yeah, they would sit there, record it, and then sit in the engineering room, and listen back to it, then go back and do another take. The anthology came out in the 90s with thousands of hours of outtakes of songs and shit. And this guy's going...
there's so many videos of John and Paul just sitting in a corner mumbling stupid English shit and then looking at George and going, now make guitar for it. And he has had to make guitar for it.
So what's his agenda with this misinformation?
Because he's trying to say that the Beatles and the Monkees are all the same, which is fucking nuts. It doesn't make any sense at all. Because he thinks... the only reason why the Monkees didn't have the same credibility as the Beatles. Now, the Beatles not only played all the music, they wrote all the songs too. But the only thing that was different is that the Monkees had that TV show, and that's what ruined their credibility.
They just never got the credibility, and it was because of the television show.
Maybe in that day it was impossible when you were a manufactured band, but today you don't get that same kind of headwind when you're manufacturing a boys band.
Were the Monkees a boys band? I mean, not in the sense that we think of today, right?
No, but they were created to be that thing that teenage girls would watch. Yeah. But they all were musicians. They all had musical talent as well, except for Davy Jones. He was just a handsome little twink. Right. They threw him in the middle. Yes. But everyone else could actually play instruments and stuff.
Yeah, they did tour.
And they became a band after. So
yes, they did tour. They did play the songs. You know, people wrote the songs for them, recorded them for them, and then they figured it out, and they went on.
They had a full album. Last Train to the Clarksville is actually a decent song. It's not just We're the Monkees and shit.
Correct. They did have good music, good pop hits back in the day. But the fact that this guy's going out and going, you know, the Monkees never got the cred that they deserved. They were actually really fucking awesome. And the reason, and they're going off on this crazy tangent with all this misinformation. And then finally they're like, all right, let's get this back on track.
Maybe we should tell the audience why we're talking about this.
Yeah. Why are we talking about this? It's because the premise of this episode, Johnny Bravo, is he gets scouted. They do this talent show for a TV show, and then Greg gets scouted by a Playboy playmate, a centerfold. She was Playmate of the Year in 1970. This woman's name was Claudia Jennings. And to your point earlier, Pat, what we want to know is, did you fuck her? Because she's a smoke show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Flat out, I was turned on. And but for me at that time, she was an older woman. And I think she would have been like 23, maybe?
Gross.
23, 24.
Yeah.
So you were a player. Was she intimidating?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Why, did you make a move?
No.
It's time to confess if you did.
No, I didn't. No.
What a story, Mark.
I mean, can you pretend you did? Because we're trying to get a podcast going here.
We're trying to find anything interesting.
Something. Jesus Christ.
No, but it's been documented by both him and the mom that he did fuck the mom. They hooked up. They dated. So he's saying he didn't like older women. He banged his TV mom.
That's a good point. Florence Henderson, I believe is her name.
Yeah.
Much, much older than this
Way
Playboy
older.
centerfold who was 23 or 24.
She looked like David Spade, kind of. Like, what? You're banging that lady.
Yeah, right.
But according to
good
Stuttering
point.
John, gives the best head.
Oh, God, that's right. Forgot.
Barry
Not
Williams?
that he got any, but he watched someone else get a blowjob.
Unbelievable.
They all had AIDS.
So here's an example of what the show is. So there's nothing interesting being said. So instead, they just have to explain what happens in each scene.
We got our setup for the show, and it's time to come back for Act 1, where we start in the family room. Carol, Alice are there, but we just establish that they're there, and everybody comes running in.
And this is the Brady's version of Who's on First. This little scene here, which they come in excitedly about, and of course, Mom knows that they were at an audition, so she assumes that is what they're excited about. But apparently, they're excited about even something more than that.
And then Carol, like she guesses, okay, because they knew where we were. Okay, you got a spot on the Greg Barton show, on the TV show. No, it's even better.
The news is even more fantastic than that, says Marcia.
I hate this fucking show.
So I wanted to bring that clip just to give you guys an example of what this show is. They, like all of these podcasts do this, where the two hosts watch the episode and then immediately sit down and go, yeah, so the first scene, this happens. And that person, you made that look. That was a pretty good look that you made. And you winked at the camera. And then Jan comes in. And Jan is a fucking really gross girl. She stinks like shit. No, that would be interesting, actually.
Yeah. You had my attention there.
No, they just explained what everyone else can see on the show.
Right.
Which is, I don't need the people who acted on the show to tell me what happened in an episode of the Brady Bunch. It's not even fun to watch on TV, let alone listen to on a podcast.
No,
But they were talking like they were setting up a clip. They kept going in this scene. So you're like, okay,
Right.
here comes the scene. And you're waiting for the scene. You're like, they're not going to show a fucking scene at all.
There's no scene. There's never a
Well,
scene.
and what's up with Greg? I know he's older. Is he holding dentures in? What is that? When he talks like this.
Yeah.
It's almost like when Peter did the pork chops and applesauce thing from back in the Pork chops and apple chops. He's doing that
Pretty
voice
good
now.
reference. You're right. There's something wrong with his speaking pattern, and that typically has to do with false teeth bouncing around in there a little bit.
Or sucking a lot of cock. Like it's two of them.
Yeah. Mr. Brady also had that similar...
AIDS. He also had AIDS. In case people don't know, this just in, Robert Reed had AIDS.
Let's not forget that.
AIDS. So much AIDS.
All right, so let's get into the third example of the style of show they do, and this is the Q&A. This is Q&A number 53. They've done 52 Q&A shows before this. And so what happens is I guess they have a Facebook group or some nonsense, and people type questions in that they then address on the show. And so the producer of their show is the one who asks them these questions, and he has to start off the show.
Well, hi, everybody. It's Ed Mann, the executive producer of the Real Brady Bros. Yes, producing is a hard job. Oh, I'm working my fingers to the bone. My fingernails need, oh my God, they're bleeding. Oh, this is bad. This is bad. I'm going to have to cut back on my workload, guys. I'm sorry. I'm doing way too much.
There have been no laughs.
What do you mean?
None.
That fucking sucked.
Yeah, we're off to a great start. I was like, oh, who is
He
this
went
guy?
off the rails quick.
Yeah,
He
who is this guy? What
was
is he doing? Why is he doing that? That's not good.
I just slipped my wrist. I don't know what's happening here. I rope around my neck. Worked so hard.
So these are the types of questions that we're going to get from people.
Hey, Craig is really on this stuff with these questions, and we like a lot of these. Was there anything actually printed in Greg's football playback, Barry?
Yes.
Oh, there was.
There were sketches.
Who fucking cares?
I believe he's referring to a playbook, and I can't imagine giving a fuck whether or not there are actual plays written in there or not.
Please, no.
Now,
Could you
I'm not
imagine
saying
asking
anyone
that?
should do this, and it would be terrible if anyone out there watching found the Facebook group and put in questions about Robert Reed and his AIDS. That would be awful. Don't if Q&A stands for queers and AIDS, if that's what it stands for,
Yeah,
all the questions about that.
You could be
don't
confused
do
by that
would be
in
awful.
2024 for sure.
Right.
So,
Yes.
but you'd have to ask the question like, you didn't ever swallow your dad's load, did you? You know, because that could give you AIDS. So hopefully you guys are spitters.
Yeah, if you swallow a load, AIDS. If you just swish and spit, you're fine. No
Switch and
AIDS.
spit, you're fine.
Yes. Scientifically proven.
You can gargle. You can get away with gargling, but don't swallow it.
I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter.
Well, speaking of Mr. Brady, here's another dynamite question coming in.
And finally, and this is important because, hey, we're now in a 24-hour news cycle. But back in the day, where did we get our news? It was the paper.
The newspaper.
It was the paper. What was the actual newspaper that Mike Brady would read?
That's the question. What was the actual newspaper that a character that doesn't exist in real life was reading? Who cares?
Yeah.
He's not really reading. It's not really a person.
He's
What's the
giving it
difference?
that Adam West delivery like it's super interesting.
I know. He's trying to make it interesting, and it's not.
What was that paper?
Can you guys won't believe the answer. It was just a prop. They're like, well, it's not a real newspaper. It's a prop.
It's an outrage.
Just like, whatever. Stupid question. It's almost like these people have to figure out, like, what question could I ask them at this point? Because they've been doing interviews about the Brady Bunch for 5 decades. So what hasn't been asked so far that we would possibly care about?
Do you think any outsider ever wrote in a question?
That's a good point. That's a good.
No one found this podcast. It gets no views and listens. No one's finding this.
But they've been doing it a long time. That's the crazy part. Like they're committed to
Hey,
it.
me too.
Yeah.
But no one listens to me either.
Okay, there you
so-
go.
Something about it is impressing Danny Bonaduce.
He was like, they're very successful. This is amazing. I gotta get on this. So then this is the dumbest question ever. And I don't know why they even give this a second thought.
He had a bonus question. And this is something we might want to think about, guys. This could be something that our company, Winfield Productions, could get involved with. And maybe there'd be some interest in it. And the rest of the cast members with the bros and the rest of the cast for that member ever considered doing a podcast sitcom in character.
Radio, like reinventing the radio play?
Well, that's what podcasting is now. It's like old radio.
No, it's not.
No.
It's actually not. I mean, there's some that do scripted, acted out stuff, but they're terrible.
Oh, well, yeah.
We've reviewed them on the show.
We are glad that those exist, but
That's a terrible idea. You guys ever want to do like a sitcom for podcasts? No. Who would listen to that?
No, it's offensive to both formats.
Yeah, it's a really, really shitty idea. So they bat this around. They're like, oh, you mean like, would there be... Yeah, the guy goes, Christopher Knight goes, would there be video? No. The guy's like, well, I guess there could be, but that would just be a sitcom, right?
Right.
So this is bad advice right here.
I think this question revolves around something that I've been thinking about. What do we do once this episodic thing is over?
I'm thinking, why don't we invite Mike, who's asking this question, to write a script and send it to us, and we'll look at it and see if we can make something out of it.
That's a great idea, Mike. And don't use AI like the other lady did, because who knows what that's going to come out. No, you write it, babe.
Hey, Mike, if you're listening, don't write a script. That'll be a waste of time. They're not going to do a sitcom podcast.
Yeah. Also, they can't even do this right. Don't do any work for them. They don't deserve it.
They don't deserve it. That was an interesting insight right there, where they go, when we run out of episodes, because they're covering the last season now. Like, when we run out of episodes, like, what are we going to do? Well, half of you.
Well, I think it's funny that they're proving how little listeners they have, and they're like, "Don't do it." Like like the other lady. There's like one other lady.
Right. Don't use AI like Carol did. Fucking Carol.
Classic Carol.
Yeah.
They're like, we get great questions from Craig, and also Craig. Craig gets great questions.
All right, this is the last clip I have. I thought I'd end on a joke, because let's not forget, as much as we're goofing on Christopher Knight and Barry Williams especially is an entertainer. And Christopher Knight's been in entertainment his entire life. These people know how to entertain an audience, and we're going to prove it right here.
Okay, I'll leave you with this then. What's green and dances?
Green and dances.
Green and dances?
Fred Asparagus.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, fuck you.
This dude is fucking corny. The worst part about that was the guy laughing at it. That was offensive.
I mean, that's offensive on 12 levels. It's so old that half the listeners won't know who Fred Astaire even fucking is.
Good point.
Asparagus doesn't even sound like Astaire.
It doesn't. What's green and dances? It's not even clever in any single way. It reminds me, so we do dynamic ads on our podcast. People have noticed that when they listen to the show. Mm-hmm. And I've been getting ads for Laffy Taffy lately. I don't know why they're targeting me with Laffy Taffy, but it's this kid reading the joke on the wrapper and the dad going, wow, that is really funny. I mean,
what's green and dances? Mike Brady's dick after having AIDS.